Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we're going to talk about the explosion of blue and yellow propaganda in the United States and how that implies a catastrophic loss in Ukraine. Also, and sorry about that. It's hard to do a show in a truck, but at any rate, we're going to talk about that. But we're also going to talk about what that catastrophic loss means, what it looks like, history, how we got here. I think it's going to be a good talk. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here, and I better get my maybe I should try my microphone. And we're going to talk about this Ukraine conflict and a little different, and from a few different perspectives. I know I talk about it a lot, but it is very, very important. What's going on right now? So, basically, I'll give you the basics of it, and that is right now. In the United States, I've noticed something just going into Walmart the other day, and I hate to go into Walmart. I actually refer to Walmart as the bad store, right? But I went to the bad store, and what I've been noticing more and more is blue and yellow everywhere. The specific color of the Ukrainian flag, blue and yellow, right? Everywhere. They're like building something out front. They got blue and yellow. I'm riding down the road. I'm looking at the parking lot, and not just any blue and yellow, very specifically. The term I use is blue yellow, the color of propaganda. Very specifically, the color of the Ukrainian flag. It's everywhere. It's all over the place. It's fire hydrants, literally, things on the road signs, you name it, everywhere is blue and yellow. And what I notice is the county government, they're painting stuff blue and yellow. The state government, the factories, the store, well, what little factories we have, the stores, all these different stores. And the other week, I'm turning on TV, and some stupid, if you've been paying any attention to Hollywood, you know that the TV is so bad right now that it's literally unwatchable, that it's not even art anymore. It is the purest of propaganda, and you can't watch it, right? It's every single show. Okay, so some show is on, and I accidentally had the TV on. And this show, and everybody let me know, most importantly, let me know if the sound is good. Everybody always let me know if the sound is good. Seems like it's okay. But at any rate, so this show is on. I think it's called like Animal Control or something. So I turn on, I look up, and it's the same thing. If there was a crowd of 10 people in this one room, one of them's black, one of them's white, one of them's skinny, one of them's overweight, one of them's Latino, one of them's this, one of them's that. You know the game. You know that every single chewing gum advertisement, one black woman, one white woman, one Asian person, one trans person, that whole, and I'm like, yeah, and so I said, let me look at it for just a few minutes. The jokes were horrible. It was clearly that they did the same thing when it came to the writers and the script writers and all. We got to have one woman, one black one, this, with no thought of we need people who can write good jokes. So the jokes were hokey and corny in the worst kind of way, and they all were related to teaching us some moral cultural lesson. It was unthinkable. But what was interesting is they walked into this room, and there was a big room with all these chairs in it, and the chairs had balloons, hundreds of balloons blown up. And guess what color they were? Some of them were blue, some of them were yellow. Very specifically, the blue and the yellow from the Iranian flag. And I'm like, isn't this interesting? Every single where I go. Why is that? And I've noticed that since Trump became president, it is magnified times 10, right? Okay. I wanted to get that baseline, that foundation. Everybody says good, no sound. Somebody says good, somebody on Twitter. So if you're watching it on YouTube and you have no sound, then what you want to do is go to either check your computer because it might not be that my problem, or go to YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, no sound, go to YouTube. All right, let me continue. So my point is this. Um, what I realized was the system, because this is the whole system, top to bottom, is in horror, is desperate. It's like, oh my God, we have to continue to keep this war going. We got to keep this conflict going no matter what. We can't let it end, right? Because they understand something that I think a lot of us don't understand. I'll put it to you like this. This is what people are saying. Well, this is what you hear. Why? Why don't they just accept it? The war is lost, right? It's over. It's lost. It's done. Accept it and move on. And I think that's what the Trump team wants to do. They got bigger, horrible fish to fry, but that's one fish that they don't want to be, moving around in the grease anymore. They want that. They want that fish over. And they don't. I don't think the Trump team, in their naivety and their incompetence, I might add, but like you're not. Come on, from the Biden team, there was competence there. Not happening. I don't think the Trump team, to be quite honest, understands the ideological and philosophical magnitude of the end of this conflict in the way that it is inevitably going to end, that it's lost. They're holding, they want out. Let's get done and move on, because they think they see this as an individual conflict, right? And they see this as, we're the tough guys. Okay, we got in a fight. We lost this fight. Let's just kind of make up a story as to why we lost this fight and walk away. It's nothing deeper than that. The Trump team are ideologically and philosophically, to be quite frank, shallow. In some ways, that can be positive. But let's look at, from the Europeans' perspective for just a moment, and from the ideology of um, of the, whatever you want to call them. I call them the fascists, the globalists who will use. I'll put it like this: if you will use fascism, if you will happily overthrow a country and install a fascist dictator, and in fact, if that your preference is for fascist dictators to be in charge of as many countries as you can possibly get them in charge of, then effectively you are a fascist, right? You're just trying to hide it at home so you can get away with what you want. So the US empire, the British empire, and these neo-colonial countries, particularly France and Germany, et cetera, are in their foundational heart of hearts fascist countries. And the plan being, we hide the fascism at home and we spread it abroad. We overthrow whatever country we can, and we get a fascist dictator in there, right? And we support this fascist dictator. We make excuses at home, and we allow the people at home to think, to believe that they have some kind of a democracy. So it's the illusion of democracy at home, and install open and outright fascism abroad in every single country we possibly can. Look at the governments that they've overthrown. Look at the people that they've installed, and to their best, ability, it's always been some hardcore fascist. Now, here's what I have to say about Europe. Let's think about Europe for a second. World War II was what? It was, if you look at it, it was the US, it was France, it was Germany, it was the UK, all building this gigantic war machine, right? They built this big mad dog, this werewolf in Germany. They funded it, they financed it, they built it, they empowered it, they did they did everything they could. The idea being, if you look at history, the idea being, let's create this beast that we can control, right? Almost like a movie where Dracula controls the werewolf, as opposed to the werewolf just being, in a traditional werewolf movie, it's just the werewolf. When he turns into a werewolf, he's just a mad creature that goes around and just destroys everything. It is the effectively and philosophically the id of humans, right? The belief that deep inside, if you just allow a human out to do whatever, he'll just go mad and tear everything to shreds, right? And that's that deep part of us, and that's what the werewolf implies, right? But in some movies, there are movies such as, there was a good one with Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale called, I can't think of the name of it. What was it? The guy that always slays the vampires. People remember. But in any rate, it was a great movie. But in this movie, Dracula, for the most part, could control the werewolf. Now, there were some parameters given, but he could control the werewolf. Here's the analogy. The Nazis were supposed to be the werewolf, and the other neo-colonial powers were supposed to be Dracula. And they were going to create this werewolf. The werewolf was going to go. It was going to destroy the Soviet Union, and voila, they would then bring the werewolf back under their control, and then they would use it for whatever they wanted to. It didn't matter. The main thing was they destroyed the Soviet Union. The problem is, let's just say they weren't able to do the things they needed to do to control the werewolf. And at some point, they said the werewolf's gotten out of control. We got to kill a werewolf. We got to neuter the werewolf, shall we say? Right? We got to stop this werewolf because we're not controlling it, and the werewolf now wants to turn on us. Van Helsing, that was the name of the movie. Any rate, so that was what happened, in my opinion. They created this monster to destroy the Soviet Union. Problem: Soviet Union ain't it. Ask Napoleon how plans to destroy the Russia and conquer Eurasia. Ask Charles the 12th. Ask everybody who's ever tried how to go take the Russians. Ask anybody how that works. Never good. Never going to work. Why? Because the Russians are defending their land, their lives, and of course, they're a powerful and brilliant warrior nation. They're very smart, always underestimated by their adversaries. The big weakness of the West is they always underestimate the intelligence, the wherewithal, and the warrior spirit of the Russians. They make that they just think, oh, the Russians are a bunch of stupid Slavs. They're not intellectually up to our, or they're not tough as we are, and they'll just run away when we wave a broom at them. They'll be afraid, and then they convince themselves of that, and then they run right into that buzzsaw, and the Russians beat the living hell out of them every single time. Every time it happens, and this is what's happening again, right? So here's my point, and this is critical. But what happened after World War II? Now, there's a book I read that has a lot of good things in it. It's called The Beast Reawakens, about what happened after World War II. Now, there's a lot of bull crack propaganda in it, and obviously the guy is a Zionist and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to be ignored in that book, but there's a lot of things that are important. But here's one of the interesting things. He doesn't get into it, but I would advise people to read the book, The Beast Reawakens by Martin E. Lee. If you're smart, knowledgeable about history, you'll know what to cast aside and what not, right? But there's some good tidbits in there. That one, another one I like to read a lot, The American Axis, and that's about Henry Ford. It's about Charles Lindbergh. It's about a lot about U.S. and Western support for the Nazis. Good one. Before, during, and after the war. Really, really another good book that I would recommend. At any rate, let me continue. This is critical part of all of this. What happens after the Russians smack down the fascist movement in Europe? Because remember, it wasn't a small fascist movement. There were elements and what's interesting is, in the same way that Ukraine, I just saw this thing the other day about Ukraine, and they were showing that how many people died in Kursk that were not Ukrainians, and it was thousands and thousands. And they showed the Poles and the Americans and the Brits and this and that. And I thought, well, that was World War II. There were a lot of Frenchmen, there were Brits, there was all kinds of people fighting. A lot of Frenchmen. Let's not forget the Spaniards and the Italian fascists, right? So there was fascists, basically, in the same way that Ukraine became a magnet for international fascism in the last few years, since 2014, right? Became a magnet. It wasn't an accident. It was intentional, right? Let's not forget Ryan Ruth, one of the guys who, and all this comes together. Ryan Ruth, one of the guys who tried to shoot Trump, right? What did this guy do? And what is his wife? His wife apparently worked for this CIA related company that what did they do? They trafficked mercenaries into Ukraine. And what he worked with, trafficking mercenaries into Ukraine, right? How about Kellogg? What did Kellogg do? What does Kellogg's daughter do? She works for a company that does what? Traffics Mercs. She's a Merc runner, right? Kellogg's daughter is a mercenary runner. They traffic mercenaries into Ukraine in the same way that fascists from Italy or France or all over, there's fascists from all over the world are trafficked into Ukraine to fight the Russians. That's what happened during, and a lot of people know there was Finns, there was, you name it, fascists all over came together and said, we're going to take out the Russians once and for all. And a lot of the Western powers facilitated that exact same thing. Now let's keep going. And this is important. Understand Europe. So when the Ukrainians, excuse me, when the Russians smashed the fascists, they smashed it. See, the Russians didn't just smash the Germans; they smashed the European fascist movement to bits. It wasn't just the Germans. The Germans were the head of the snake. The international fascist movement was funneled into Germany to take by the a lot of the Western powers funneled into Germany to take out the Soviets. Okay, just like Ukraine. And the Russians, as they tend to do, smashed the hell out of them and tore them to shreds and took everything that they wanted so they couldn't come back. All the Eastern Europe, they're like, sorry, we ain't going to let this happen for a while because they know this is the way it works. Okay. In the same way, that the US and the UK overthrows governments around the world, right? Whether it's Pinochet or whoever, Sukarno, you name it. Well, in the same way that they overthrow governments and install fascist regimes, right? In the same way that's what Germany was about. It was installing a fascist regime and trafficking mercs, fascists there to fight the Soviets. Okay, so that's what happens again. That's what happens again here. Now we get to the important part. After the war, 40s and 50s, the CIA and MI6 go into Ukraine. Why? Because their entire fascist movement all over had been smashed to pieces by the Russians. They didn't have anything left. It was gone. So they had to keep Ukraine and the Banderites going because that's the only thing they had. The fascists in their countries had to go underground and hide because, let's face it, the countries had been hit so hard by fascism, all of them, that the people were like, had it up to here with fascism. The actual people were like, screw this fascism, bullcrap, man. This is terrible. This is horrible. We want the government to give us health care and things like that so we can survive. So fascism was on its last leg. And, the ruling elite could not convince the people of France or Germany or these other countries who had been, wrought with misery by fascism. They could no longer argue with him. Fascism's a good thing. So the fascists in those countries had to go underground, and they had to hide it somewhere. They couldn't let fascism die in Europe. They had to keep their fascism alive so that at some point they could resuscitate it and go after the Russians again, right? And it wasn't the Soviet Union, and it wasn't communism they were going against. It was they wanted to take greater Eurasia so they could get that gigantic landmass and control the world. It was the ultimate neo-colonial wet dream. The ultimate neo-colonial fantasy is, if we get this thing, man, we got all of Asia. It's game over. We got everything we need for good. We'll build more ships. But we can finance. We can have all the war machines for the war material. We'll have the energy. We'll have everything we need to fight and go around the world and rule the world, right? The ultimate fascist wet dream, except the Russians weren't having it. So what do? In Ukraine, they maintain on life support as long as they could. They're like, we'll maintain our last element of fascism in Europe right here, and we'll keep it alive. Now, what else did they do? They moved some of the Ukrainian fascists to Canada and to the United States. I mean, in upstate New York, Scott Ritter's talked about it many times. They got a camp where the Ukrainian nationalists go to this camp and they pledge. They got a statue of Bandera and they pledge. And people are like, the United States allows that? Oh my God, you mean the United States allows? No, the United States doesn't allow it. The United States finances it. The United States supports it, keeps it going at all cost. Why? Because they have to maintain a lifeline of fascism in Ukraine so that at some point they can rebuild Nazi Germany in Ukraine, of course, philosophically and ideologically speaking. They can rebuild their Nazi Germany fascist machine in Europe to go after the Russians again. So what do? They keep the Ukrainians here. They keep them strong and fed and watered, right, like the cattle that they are, to be thrown at Russia here. And they move them up the chain. Christian Freeland, they move them up. They politically make them strong. They economically make them strong. They keep them supported and going. They keep them aligned with fascism around the world. Look, people were like, but talking before the war, saying, "Isn't this something? You fascists from all over the world are coming." coming to Ukraine. They all want to come to Ukraine. No, no, no. It wasn't organic. It wasn't that fascists around the world happened to want to come to Ukraine. It was a mission. It was part of the plan. The US and the colonial powers in Europe were basically shipping them there, training them there, keeping them going, keeping fascism alive, right? As Jesse Jackson says, they were keeping hope alive, right? Keeping hope alive that they could get this fascist machine to go after the Russians again, right? So this whole plot of keeping Ukraine as the last bastion of fascism in Europe, and they couldn't let it get snuffed out, so that at some point they could use it to go, let's do part two, man. It didn't work with Hitler, but we'll get him this time, because this time they had figured out that they weren't going to be able to just go in and pound the Soviet Union and take them to pieces, or pound Russia and take it to pieces. They realized, that ain't a good plan. The Russians tend to fight and knock the hell out of us. So if we go in there, plus we can't put everybody together and do it. So all we got is this one Ukraine, but we'll build the Ukraine strong enough to give the Russians hell. And of course, then you know their plan, right? Their plan then is what? To strengthen Ukraine enough to get the war going, sacrifice Ukraine, of course. Why the hell wouldn't you, right? To sacrifice Ukraine, and then use the sanctions war. Because their thing is now, well, what do we have now? We've got this economic powerhouse. That's why they kept saying, we'll get more money for Ukraine, more billions for Ukraine, money, because in their view of the world, money always wins. So whoever has the most money wins the fight. So they kept saying, we'll send 60 billion to Ukraine, 80 billion, another 100 billion. Why? Because from their perspective, the more money they provided to Ukraine, the more likely they were to win. If we give them another 100 billion, then we'll give them these wonder weapons, the M777s, the Bradleys, the F-16s. Why? Because again, the Russians are poor, these little backwards, ignorant Slavs. And our weapons have to be far superior to them, because genetically and intellectually and every other way, we're superior to them. So surely, with all the little stupid little weapons the Russians have, they'll never stand up to us. And of course, we'll continue every few months to have another round of sanctions. And sooner or later, one of these rounds of sanctions is bound to take the Russians out. So the Ukrainian, that was the fascist compound, almost like on a farm where you have a fence around something, and inside that fence you keep your sheep or your pigs, right? That was Ukraine. They had a fence around Ukraine, and that's where they kept their stable of fascists. We keep our pigs in here, or in this instance, we'll keep our fascists in here, and we'll keep them pinned up, and we'll feed them, and we'll get them good and strong. So eventually, they can go to the slaughterhouse, which is the means to fight Russia. And as they're getting slaughtered, we will then use the slaughter of Ukrainians to weaken Russia. And of course, they'll be merrily happily do that to be slaughtered in service to us, because they're fucking dumb as hell. You know, we've turned them into stupidity by brainwashing them to believe that they can defeat the Russians. So, okay, we're going to have the Ukrainians all ready to throw their poor little bodies into the meat grinder. They'll be more than happy to do that. Hooray. And of course, then that's when we'll use our economic advantage to take Russia out. Of course, none of that worked. But one of the things that happened was, when they felt that they had the strength now to take Russia out, they felt that they had the power now. Now it's time to make our move. And they started going on Russia. The other fascist elements in throughout Europe started to come out of hiding. Remember what I said? After World War II, the fascists throughout Europe had to go underground and pretend that they were opposed to Nazi Germany, and pretend that they were opposed to fascism, because fascism had wrought hell amongst the populace, right? So what did they do now? You know what it's like? It's like the gay movement, right? Where, oh my gosh, the gay people couldn't say they were gay because, you know, they might get beat up. Terrible things might happen to them. They would get discriminated against, right? So then all of a sudden there's rainbow flags everywhere, and all the gay people came out and said, here I am, I'm gay, right? Oh, I'm happy now. What has happened is all the gay people felt empowered to come out and scream they were gay, right? As loud as they could. And there are, what's the thing? Some people see it as a rubber band effect, where it went from, there was horrible discrimination against gay people, to now the government is basically saying Gay is wonderful and gay should be good and we should push gay, as opposed to there are those of us who just say, look, I don't want to know about people's sex. So leave it alone and just let gay people be gay people and non-gay people be non-gay people. And I won't, as far as I'm concerned, if a person's gay, it doesn't matter to me. I don't want to know about what their sexual orientation is. I don't care really, right? That's where a lot of us are. But what we have, a lot of us are just like, gay people, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like one guy has blonde hair, one guy has brown hair, one guy has green eyes, one guy has no eyes, whatever. It's none of my business and I don't want to know, right? But I'm not interested. I don't want to treat them bad or not treat them bad. Just let them live their lives and be smart, I hope. Maybe oppose Zionism. Great. That's a good thing for gay people to do, and everybody else, might I add. But here's my point. Here's my point. The rubber band effect is all I'm saying. I didn't want to, me, I'm ADD. I could get, lost in the sauce and go in other directions. My point being this, using analogies. Now what happens? I've used the term the Nazi princesses, right? The Nazi princesses. Who I'm talking about? Kaja Kallas, Annalena Baerbock, Ursula von der Leyen. Right now, look at Merritt. I mean, I could go on and on. This guy Merritt or whoever it is. Every one of these people, every one of them, right? If you look at them, there are two things. Absolutely despise Russians. And what did Zelensky come out and say the other day? I hate Putin. I don't like Russians. 100% hate Putin. That was a signal. That was because he's nothing but a mouthpiece for MI6, right? That was the two things. Number one, everybody in America, I mean, who's listening, all of our supporters should hear this. You should hate Putin. Remember, he's an actor, Zelensky, and Zelensky is your actor, leader, whatever, indicator of how you should think. So when he comes out and says, I hate Russia, I hate Putin, etc., let that be a message to you that it's good to do it. It's not only should you do it, not only is okay, it's a good thing to do. So he comes out, I hate Russia, right? Remember the Canadians a while back? What did they do? That was very interesting and very symbolic. They brought out this guy, I forgot, Holoslav Honka or some crap like that, right? And what was he? He was a former SS officer in the and they brought him out and they're like, okay, everybody, we're doing a coming out party in Canada now. They've done their coming out party in Germany. They got Baerbock, they got all these former Nazis, they got Ursula von der Leyen, that's their coming out party. Look at me, I'm a Nazi, I feel good. On and on. Kaja Kallas, woo, look at me, I'm a Nazi, right? Well, Canada, it's time to do ours. We're going to do ours for real. And so Canada comes out and says, hey, guess what we got? Right here, an actual member. And they're like, and he fought the Russians, so he was good. Who did he fight for again? Don't matter. He fought the Russians. The implication is he was good. So it was coming out parties all over the place. Really, let's face it, Canada is a European country. It still swears allegiance to the Queen. It is a European, maybe a little bit of French. They argue between whether they're French imperialists or British imperialists, but they don't argue whether or not they're part of the neo-colonial world, right? So what do they say? Well, if the Americans won't do it, damn it, we will. Here we are. They're dancing and spinning. Look at us. We're open with it. We're out of the closet. We are fascists. We love the Nazis. That's what they come out and said. And people were like, oh my God, I can't believe that. And they were like, well, okay, it didn't go over as big as we wanted. Yeah, it was an accident. Would you believe that? Didn't really mean it. We had no idea this guy. Who knew? I mean, do you think we did a background check on a guy that we were bringing in to the Canadian Parliament? Yeah, actually we did. But that's not important now. We'll just say that we did and pretend like it was an accident. Wink, wink. It was an accident. It was their coming out party. It was okay. We hid that we were fascists since the end of the war. Now we're coming out and like, okay, we're here again. We got our Nazi princesses everywhere. Everybody that's going to be in charge, whether it's Merits or Smerts or Freerts, it doesn't matter who it is. They're going to have their family is going to be former Nazi. They wanted Christina Freeland in charge, but that didn't really work out well. Christian Freeland, grandfather, father, whoever the hell was a Nazi. They wanted Nazis all the way down. They weren't able to get her, but they're still getting plenty of them. So what we're seeing now is Ukraine is nothing but Germany, Nazi Germany part 2. It is, we hid, now we're waking back the Nazi fascist movement in Europe has reawakened, and we have our um official army for the fascist movement that has reawakened in Europe, right? We have, and here's the thing: they're smarter than they were before. So they figured we're good this time, because the last time they just came out and said we hate Jews and we hate gays and we'll kill them all and we hate this group and we hate that way. No, 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 no. Not this time. They're smart. This time the game was this: we're the nice guys. We're the nice fascists. We're not really fascists. We're really, really nice. So now, the last time it was, let's put on a leather and let's go around beating people and goose stepping and things like that. And then we will be open about our fascism. This time they're like, that didn't work. We'll do the liberal interventionist kind of fascism. This time we'll just come out and say, we're the nice guys. We love gay people and trans people and all these minorities. We love all of them and blah, blah, blah. All of that is good. And therefore, we're not really fascist. We're actually supporting the good guys. And one thing that screwed them up is the fascist movement that they had to maintain in Ukraine is too stinking obvious, right? The fascist movement that they had to maintain in Ukraine is like, and they had to do this. It's the only way they could really keep it going is they actually sport proudly the iconography of the Third Reich. Right. They actually proudly run around saying, look at me, I'm a fascist. I am an actual Nazi. So they had to really do that. And they had to, so those people are running around to keep them happy and to keep this thing alive. They kept them covered with swastikas and carrying around their latest, version of Mein Kampf and stuff. Right. So okay, we got to deal with that. We'll deal with that. This is what the Banderites want. We got to keep the Banderites happy. You got to throw them a bone to some extent. And the bone we'll throw them is to allow them to be the open Nazis. And the rest of us will pretend that we're not. And that's the way it'll work. So what happens now? I'm going somewhere with this, believe it or not. So what happens now? So now they make their move on the Soviet Union, Russia, whatever the hell you want to call it. They make their move on Eurasia, right? To overthrow Eurasia and take over the world. And it flops. Damn those stinking Russians. Not again. We knew we had them. We came after them militarily, and they just fought us down and wore us down, like the Russians tend to do. They just wore us down. What is the old saying? In the battle between the stream and the rock, the stream wins every single time. And the Russians will just, when they go to fight you, they will just chip away, and they will chip the foundation out from under you until you fall, everything collapse on top of you. That's right. I hate to go back to this analogy. It's building 7 all over again. At some point, you're just going to drop, and people are going to think your foundation is firm, and you're going to drop. You're going to go building 7. And the only problem is that people look at building 7 and they're like, what the hell? That doesn't make sense. But of course, the building 7 analogy here is that you're dropping like a freaking, you're dropping, you're done. And so now they're starting to run into the same old problem. Damn those Russians. They thwart us every time. And so now that brings us to where we are today. The Nazi movement, the fascist movement is awake, and it's screaming and it's dancing around in circles, and it's out of the closet in Europe, right? But it has failed in every way. See, when they went after, I'll put it to you like this. Let me put it, I don't know how much you know about self-defense. I won't even say martial arts, self-defense, right? Why is it that in self-defense, one of the first thing a person's, let's say an open hand is, and I'm kind of crinkled up, I can't use any kind of, proper structure, but I'm saying, what is the first thing they're going to teach you about a punch, open hand punch, right? What is that? Go out, bring it back. So you'll see a punch, snap it back, pop. It pops out. You're, as Bruce Lee would say, right? You don't punch. Your punch explodes out and comes back. You don't kick. You're one of its own. Your kick just goes out and pops out and pops back, right? Why is that? Why is it that one of the first things a person has to learn to is when you punch or kick or strike, bring it back. Some people will say like a weapon, chamber it, pop, and it's chambered, and it's ready to strike here, ready again, right? Like a rattlesnake. What does a rattlesnake do, right? A rattlesnake snaps, pow, and he's back ready to strike again. Not only is he ready to strike again, if he leaves his neck out here, you can grab it and maybe, or, his enemy can get him. He wants to pop out and come back, right? I'm going somewhere here. Why is that? Why is it that you got to get back? A, so you can strike again, but there's a more important thing here that you got to learn if fighting, if you're in self-defense. If that arm comes out and it don't come back and it stays and it hangs out there too long, your enemy's going to grab it. Your adversary's going to grab it. Number one, and he's going to twist it, and your shoulder's going to go down. He's going to break your wrist. He's going to get a hand on that. He's going to pull you in. He's going to do terrible things to you. So if that arm stays out too long and it doesn't snap back, you want to strike a blow. But if the blow doesn't land or whatever, you want to get back chambered to strike another blow, like a snake. Pop, and he's back. He doesn't come out and bite you. He snaps, pow, like a whip, right? Popping back, right? On the street, what'll a person do? They'll throw this big hook. It's slow and long coming around here, and and when it misses, what happens? That hand wraps all the way around here. Look at me. My hand missed you, and it's over here. Everything you may want to strike, you can, boy, these ribs on the right-hand side are done, right? This whole side of my face, all of that, my hand is here. And you can strike me every which way, the whole side. You can do all kind, whatever you want to do. Everything is open. If I throw that hook and I miss, I'm open. And that should end the fight. If anybody knows what they're doing, somebody throws a big hook, number one, they can step in and block it and cut right in. I mean, because you telegraph it, you show them that it's coming. Number one, that big long hook is telegraphed. You're showing everybody they have plenty of time to react. Even if you're quick, they still got time, right? And number two, if they just do this and it misses, and they do back and they do a push block, right? They back and they just maybe just a little. If your hand's coming around, how hard do they have to strike this wrist to push this in, right? They do a little push block and back up and move a little bit, and then they turn that hand and pop right on top of your nose or whatever they want to do, right? You're in trouble. Here's my point. The U.S. telegraphed, and the fascists who wanted to take out Russia telegraphed. They overthrew in 2008. What did they say? Eventually we're going to take Ukraine and Georgia, and then when we do that, that's it. Yeah, the Russians know what that's about. Then you're going to try to take us out. The Russians know that. They've been through this too many times. So you're telegraphing that big punch coming. 2014, you overthrow the government, and the Russians are like, well, we see what you're going to do. So they've been prepping since 2008, at least for this, right? Preparing. You throw that big hook. People are like, oh, I see, that's a hook coming. They have time to react. They see that hook coming a mile away, and you've been yapping, I'm going to get you. I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to beat you up. They have plenty of time to prepare. They go home. They do push-ups. They do sit-ups. They practice their blocks, their kicks, their punches, their elbow strikes, eye strike. They're practicing everything, right? Why? Because you told them you were going to come beat them up. Then you come to their house. All right, they got to get prepared. They're doing push-ups and sit-ups. They're doing running. They're getting all physically and mentally and prepared for the fight. You've given them time. You've telegraphed this punch. When the punch comes, they defeat the punch and they defeat you. So we telegraphed to the Russians since 2008 that we were coming after them, and they had time to prepare for the punch. They had time to prepare for the fight from 2008 all the way until 2022. Think about that. 14 years of preparation. The Russians were ready for it. They stood ready and they defeated it. But not only that, the Russians understood that when they saw sanction after sanction coming, all these sanctions came. And then when the sanctions were dropped just before 2014, what happened? 2014 comes, all the sanctions come back, and then more some. So what else the Russians did you telegraph to them? We're going to hit you hard with sanctions. So they had time to prepare. We're going to grow our own food. We're going to make our own shoes, and we're going to get our industry going. We're going to do all these things to prepare. In all they knew. The Russians knew that a full spectrum attack on them was coming. So they created a full spectrum defense. They saw the rise of that fascism coming. They were prepped. You threw that punch in 2022 and missed. And when you missed, everything's open. And the Russians are ready to make their move. So what happens now? The Russians build their alliances. I believe, may be wrong, this is my belief, but I believe that it wasn't an accident that the Russians had this Africa summit a couple years ago. And within weeks after that Africa summit, Burkina Faso overthrew the French puppet government. Mali, Niger, they all overthrew within weeks. After the Africa-Russia summit, the Sahel region countries started to overthrow the French puppet governments and throw them out. I may be wrong, but I believe Russia was was involved in that, right? I believe that was part of the defensive move by Russia to help the people on the ground to overthrow their French colonial governments and throw them out. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just a guess. I could be completely wrong, right? It could be that they went to Russia and said, this is what we're going to do. Now, what is Russia doing? Russia is saying, hey, we are going to help Burkina Faso and these other countries build up their military to defend what they got. Why? Because Russia's doing it to defend themselves in Africa, right? They're building new, what do you call it? They're building new markets for Russia and China, and they're going to help defend it. And rest assured, Russia's going to help them with military. China's going to help them with economics. And so these new markets will be built, and they'll be strengthened by Russia and China because it benefits them. Okay, so now what's happening? Let's get to all of this. Let's get to more towards the close of this thing, what I'm getting at, the foundation. What we're looking at now with all this blue and yellow crap all over the place and this desperation. No, 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 Trump, you can't let the Russians win. Well, we look at it logically and we say it's already over. You've already lost. How do we look at it? Like a chess game, right? In a chess game, when you get to a certain point and both players look at each other and you say, it's effectively checkmate. It's not checkmate. It's effectively checkmate. I know that any move I make now, the game is over. If I move here, my person goes there, then I got to go here or here, then they can go there, there. And when I evaluate all the moves, what I know is this. Effectively, the game's not over, but it is over. Turn the board over, start again. There's no point in finishing a game when the end result is known, right? So we look at it logically like a game of chess. Look, can't defeat the Russians now. It's over. So what's the point of this from the perspective of a chess game? But what if it's different? Think of it like, and some of these people are attorneys. Think of it like desperation. Here's an example, as I've said. Let's just say somebody sends you some kind of a legal demand and you get it from the court, and the court says you have to respond within 60 days, right? Are you going to respond now? No, you're not. You're going to respond in 59 and a half days. Why? You've got a couple of things. You're going to try everything you can. You're going to research everything you can, and you're going to keep hope alive, right? There's times when, and I've seen this in a particular case where someone will say, I don't know what the hell, let's just try anything we can, right? For instance, a person doesn't have the money to move forward with the case and all these other things, right? And this particular person, and the court says you got to respond within 60 days, and they wait, and like 58 days in, one particular thing, this guy's aunt died and left him like $50,000. And that allowed him to, and he's like, holy crap, I've got the money now to file and continue on with the case. He didn't want his aunt to die, but to be quite frank, his aunt was on one leg. She had been in hospice for a long time. She was like 90 some years old. He knew she was going to go. She left him $50,000. This happened 2 days before his deadline to file the thing that he desperately needed to file. It was actually a divorce case of somebody that I knew quite well. And in fact, in case you didn't know, his wife couldn't get half of that, even though, for instance, if you're married, I hate to go to this, let's just say you're married and you accumulate a bunch of things together. In most states, your wife or husband, whoever, can get half or whatever the case may be. But let's say a relative dies and specifically leaves you money. The other partner doesn't have a claim on that money because it was specifically left to you by a relative, not to as a family acquisition kind of thing, right? And this was the instance. This guy got this $50,000. He actually had a lot of money involved in that. He had like a $850,000 house. Bottom line, he needed that money. He got the money. So here's my point. That's why people wait till the last minute. Sometimes just a prayer, anything will happen. They're hoping, and sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, but they're in desperation, right? When you're in desperation, you try anything to survive a little bit longer, hoping something will happen. Just to keep surviving. We just got to keep surviving, right? As long as we can. God knows what will happen, but hopefully something will happen. Okay. We look at the Ukraine conflict like a chess game. And we say, it's over, guys. Why don't you just admit that you've lost? The fascists have bet everything on this. It's existential to them. Think about this. They had the fascist movement in Germany, and that got crushed by the Russians. What do they have then? We're going to keep this fascist movement on life support in Ukraine. This is the European fascist movement. We can't let it die. We'll keep it on life support in Ukraine. We'll ship some of them to the US. We'll ship some of them into Canada and other places, and we'll keep this Ukrainian fascist movement going because it's all we got. If we're ideological fascists, very, very wealthy and powerful fascists in Europe and America, we've lost. But we can't let it die. We can't let our ideology die. We'll keep it alive in Ukraine. Okay. It's the last breath of the fascist movement. What the hell do they do if it gets crushed in Ukraine? What happens when they lose in Ukraine? You know what happens? You know what happens? I'll tell you what happens. Some form of revolutionary change. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be a socialist revolution or this kind of revolution or that kind of revolution, but I can tell you right now, the Greens and the SPD and these people that said, stick with us, we've got to stay with Ukraine, and they stay with Ukraine, and Ukraine gets its ass kicked and loses, and they're sitting there holding the bag. They won't be in power anymore, right? All throughout Europe, the fascists are holding on to power, and the power that they're holding on to is directly related to the Ukrainian conflict. That if they lose the Ukrainian conflict, they're exposed. They're out there in the middle. And everybody looks at them and said, you sons of bitches. You stuck our necks out, all of us out for the Ukrainians. You told us we had to defend Ukraine no matter what. And you told us it was existential. You told us if we didn't defend Ukraine, that Putin was going to kill us all, that he was coming across the border and we were all going to die. Damn it. And it didn't happen. We want your necks. We want your heads on a platter. Politically, you're out of here. You're screwed. How does the fascist movement that's been hanging on in Ukraine by a thread ideologically continue to survive? Where do they move to now? They got knocked out of Germany. Now they're getting knocked out of Ukraine. Where do they go? So it's existential to them. There's no place for them to go. They're backed into a corner, and that corner is in Kiev. So they're not holding on to it just for embarrassment. They're not holding on to that just because they feel bad or there'll be egg on their face. They are all the fascist movement in Ukraine was kept on life. I mean, in Europe was kept on life. It was knocked out of Franco's Spain. It was knocked out of Mussolini's Italy. It was knocked out of Hitler's Germany. It was crushed by the Soviet Union, and the only place it could hide was in Western Ukraine with Banderism, and they kept it alive at all costs. And now it's on life support, and they're looking at it saying, if this thing dies here, how do we bring it back? How do we save it? There's no place for us to hide. And the same with, I think the fascists here in the United States is thinking the same thing, because they see their fascist movement as inextricably linked to the fascist movement and the fascist ideology in Europe. So that's the reality of it. And so the ruling elite, let's face it, the Walmart, the Walton family, how much are they worth? 150 billion or something crazy like that? Probably one of the richest families on earth. You think Walmart doesn't see themselves tied to the fascist movement? You think they weren't thinking to themselves, hey, man, we're super rich. When our government takes over Russia and has access to all of those natural resources, man, are we going to have it made? So they're in desperation. Meanwhile, the Trump team, they're so they're the knuckle dragging ideologues, right? They're not the intellectual ideologues. They're not the intellectual fascists. They're just knuckle draggers. We hate communism. No like communism. They got hairy arms and a club. No like communism. Hit communism with club. Bip. I mean, look at Hegseth. That guy is about as stupid as a bag of ice. And that's the Trump what can I call it? The Trump faction that we're looking at here. Guys and might I add, the European and the American fascists who consider themselves the ruling elite and the intellectuals despise the Trump people. They see them as the knuckle draggers that they are, but they think they're smarter than they are. And in some ways they are. But they're not any less evil, maybe even more. They're at least as evil, if not more evil. So now you got the Trump people in, and so basically what you have is this too. You have a factional dispute, a ruling elite factional dispute. The traditional intellectual ideological fascists versus the knuckle draggers, to be quite frank, versus the guys who the ruling elite that are fascists and that want to go around the world stealing everything and taking everybody's stuff, but they want to be slick about it, and they want to tell everybody they're doing it on behalf of helping women's rights and gay people and black and indigenous people of color and all this old horse crap, right? They want a smoke screen. They want human shields. They want to put up rainbow flags in front of their fascism, as opposed to the Trump team, who are just kind of knuckle draggers. They're ideological conservatives, and they're just like, we're going to go around and push our conservative values, fairly simplistic conservative values. We're going to fairly simplistically go around the world and shake our fists at people and say, you better do what we're telling you to do. And they actually they believe that they have far more power than they have. That's their problem. They have dramatically overestimated the economic power that they have in the world. Okay. And now they're paying a price for that, and everybody will. But what we're really dealing with here is a factional war between the ruling elite. The ruling elite fascists who are like, oh my God, if we lose the last bastion, the last corner, the last hiding place that we had for fascism after we've all come out. I mean, we've come out of the fascist closet. Look who we got. We've got Kallis and von der Leyen and Baerbock and all of these, Freeland and all of these people who are, let's face it, their lineage is fascism. If you shake their family tree, the only damn thing that's going to fall out is a bunch of people in Nazi uniforms. Shake the family tree, and a bunch of guys will come goose stepping off the limbs, right? Obvious, clear. They're out in the open now. Woo! It's our time again, brother. It is our time. We are out there. Fascism has rearisen, and we don't have to hide who we are anymore. And let's put the Nazi princesses out. But they swung and they missed, and they threw a big swing. I mean, they're stupid as shit, tell you the truth. I mean, these are the same people who said, look, we're going to do an offensive against Russia. And they did the same thing. What are you going to do? We're going to tell the Russians we're going to do offensive. We're going to tell everybody we're going to do offensive. We're going to say where we're going to do the offensive. We're going to say when we're going to do the offensive. And then we're literally going to have like Hollywood trailers. They literally like made these videos about the upcoming offensive. Hey, the New York City Rockettes are dancing around, and they got like blue and yellow. Hey, it's offensive time. We're coming in from the Zaporozhye region at exactly 180 degrees from the city of Kherson. We're going to do it at 2:45 p.m. on April the 12th, and we're going to have 400,000 soldiers coming from the left. Oh boy, they're dancing around, and the Russians are like taking notes. Okay, man, how many soldiers was that? 400,000. 400,000 soldiers. Thank you very indeed. What direction was that they're coming from again? All right, guys. You want to put the mines over here, artillery here? We'll fly in Fab Fives, and we'll wipe these idiots out. We will just stack them up like cordwood, because that's what you do with morons like this. They come, and what happened? They sent them in right down the pike, just like they said. They told you when they were going to come. They said how they were going to come, how many were going to come, what direction they were coming from, and the Russians were sitting there like, okay. You want to make it that easy for us? Let's just sit here. And the Russians are sitting there. They're filing their nails. They're having shots of vodka. They're doing that dance that the Cossacks, that's where they cross their hands and they go down and kick and up and kick. And they're doing all of this stuff. And they wake up and an alarm goes off. Hey, what's the alarm? Oh, yeah. The morons told us when they were going to attack. The alarm says we got 15 minutes to attack. Everybody, they probably literally had like the artillery flying. All right. And fire in 3, 2. Artillery's in the air. We got birds in the air, right? And then the Ukrainians come marching out into the battlefield. Blah, 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 blah. They get trashed, and the Russians go back and say, "All right, everybody, a shot of vodka." And what happens in Berlin and in London and Washington? They all scratch their heads. I don't understand it. For some weird reason, the offensive didn't work, and this is unbelievable. It makes no sense to me. We're perplexed, dumbfounded, baffled, might I say. And that's where we are. And the Russians are like, you didn't really have to make it this easy, but thanks. And so here we are. Here we are now at a point where, to be quite frank, the only thing these idiots are doing is just hoping and praying that some point before the collapse of the Ukrainian, of the last bastion of the um fascist movement in Europe, that the last sniff of it, that hopefully, prayerfully, before all of that happens, something will happen. Anything. God knows. Maybe some Arnold die and leave me $50,000. Something's gotta happen, because if it doesn't, we lose. And might I add, here's what the Americans know, and the Brits too, really. When we lose it all. This whole idea that you're going after China, this place or that place, whatever. When you lose this, I'll put it like this. I'll put it to you like this as we get to the end in our last 5 minutes. The only reason the dollar is strong is because people believe and that the dollar is a safe haven is because people believe it's strong and believe it's a safe haven. When people no longer believe it's strong or believe it's a safe haven, it's neither strong nor a safe haven. They take their money out and go elsewhere, right? As long as you got people fooled, right? It's like the bully, and he walks across the schoolyard and tells everybody, "Give me my money." And as long as people believe that he's the toughest guy and that they'll be beaten up, then guess what happens? Then they're all going to give him his money. His strength is that everybody believes that he's strong. That's all he's got. Because if one day people say, "Hey, we don't believe it anymore," they'll try him. Maybe 4 or 5 of them will say, "You know what? If you're going to fight me, you got to fight us all. If you're going to fight me, you got to fight 4, 5, 6, 7 of us." And what happened if the bully has to fight 4, 5, 6, or 7 people? He's going to lose that. So his only strength is that people believe that he's can dominate them. He can dominate them because they believe it. The minute people lose that fear, it's game, set, and match for the bully. He's got nothing. Period. He can't take anybody's lunch money. He can't do anything. He's on his own. He has the only lunch money he's got is the lunch money he's got in his own pocket, and that ain't much. So now, what the Americans know, and what you and I know, and what the Brits probably know, that is this, and what the Trump team haven't figured out. The day this war ends, because Russia's already said, "Look, you came to our border to kill us, to do us dirty, to destroy us. It's existential to us. So we can't walk away unless we get everything we need. And if you don't give it to us, we'll take it. We'll take it. And if you got the guts to come in and fight us, you're going to have to do that. Whatever happens, it's up to you how this thing ends, because we're going to end it." And now you've put yourself in a position where your people are unhappy with this situation and your people want out. How's Trump going to say, "Hey, go back to Congress and say, hey, give me another $50 billion for Ukraine"? The MAGA people will go bananas, as if they're happy now. Right? What happens? How does the Europeans and say, "Okay, we're going to war with Russia. Everybody out there who's struggling and suffering, go send all your kids to die." Their governments will all fall. So in trying to maintain some level of plausible deniability to their people, to keep their people going along with it, to keep their people willing to suffer and bite the bullet to keep this war going, they had to keep some distance from the war. Now they can't wake up and admit to their people, "Okay, it's our war, let's go fight it." It won't work. Their people won't buy it. Their people won't do it. They won't fight it. Their people are struggling, and their people want bread, and they want water, and they want butter, and they do not want to go die, and they'll turn on the ruling elite if they try it. They back themselves into a corner, and they know it. And Trump's just saying, "Look, why don't we just walk away and do other things here? We can talk about the other things. We ain't gonna like the other things, but Trump wants out." Right? Problem they got is this: there ain't no way out. Now, Trump and his people are going talking to the Russians saying, "Is there a way out?" And the Russians saying, "No, we told you what we wanted." And what we want effectively, what the Russians want is the destruction of fascism in Ukraine. Remember that if you don't remember anything else from this talk. What is denazification? Everything I said boils down to denazification. In the end, the Russians know, just like you and I know, that after World War II, the fascists in Europe planted their movement in Ukraine and kept it there and nurtured it and strengthened it so they could use it after to go after Russia again, right? And they kept the Nazis there. And what does denazification mean? Denazification means no more. It means the final destruction of the fascist movement in Europe once and for all. Its last hiding place, the last rock that these fascists could hide under was in Kiev, was in Western Ukraine. And guess what? The Russians' final thing, we got to have denazification means if we don't have denazification, what do you guys want to do? Why do the why do the French and the UK want to put um uh 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 um uh troops in the Ukraine? Is it to confront the Russians? No, because they know they can't fight the damn Russians. Come on. You're mistaken if you're like, and me too. I thought about, oh my God, 20,000, 40,000 troops. That's not going to be able to do anything against the Russians. They know it, and it ain't to fight the Russians. It is to protect against denazification. It is to say we can't fight the Russians. We can't defend against the Russians. No. But we can defend against denazification. So when the Russians come in or whatever and say, okay, we're going to destroy the Banderite movement once and for all, that the fascists can say, mm-mm, you can have all you want in Ukraine. You can take the money, you can come up to the river, you can take the cities and all of that, but we must defend the fascist movement here, the Banderite movement, because that's all we got. If that dies, what do we do then? How do we come back after you later? How do we revive it to fight you later? We got to keep this thing alive because it's our only hope of eventually destroying Russia. One of these days, we're going to get it. Okay, we came after you, Napoleon, you knocked it down. We came after you with World War II. You knocked it down, but we kept it alive. We always kept that fascist movement alive, and this time the only little corner we had was Ukraine, and we kept it alive here. And damn it, we're not going to let you take that from us, because where do we go then? Where do we hide? And we've already come out of the closet, and we're like destroying Soviet memorials, around the country, and we're making the Russian church illegal. What they're doing is this: the Ukrainization of all of Europe. We brought it out, man. So now we're going to go through Eastern Europe and we're going to say it's illegal to be Russian. It's illegal to worship in Russian. It's illegal to speak Russian. We're going to Ukrainize all of Eastern Europe and we'll spread that out. Right. But denazification won't let that happen, will it? So ultimately, it comes down to the foundation of this war is denazification. Thanks a lot, everybody. Let me look. I don't see any. Let me see something here before I go. As you can see, I am doing my best to keep this going. Let's see here. I am trying my best to see if I have any, super chats, because if I do, I don't see any. But if I do, I would certainly feel obliged. What do we got here? Okay, we got something. Ivan B, super sticker. Thanks, Ivan B. If there's any super stickers or anything like that, or super chats, I want to make sure that I respond to them. Let me bring this is hard. Let me tell you something. Doing this crap in a truck ain't easy. Well, why don't we name this The Truck Chronicles, the philosophy of Garland Nixon in a friggin' Ford pickup truck. The infamous Truck Chronicles. Maybe years from now, somebody will like write a book about it. Yes, do you remember Garland Nixon 100 years ago? Yeah, well, he did this thing, The Truck Chronicles. It's lived for thousands of years. Let me see. Let's go with the old pickup truck chronicles here. Anybody in Rockfin? Maybe the people in Rockfin, because if somebody like made some kind of a donation, I want to make sure that I respond to it. in the Pickup Truck Chronicles. Well, things ain't working out so well with Rockfin as far as the Pickup Truck Chronicles, so we will do the best we can. Sorry about that, Rockfin people. Any more? Anything else? Nope. Garland, why somebody says, "Why you sit in a truck?" Yeah, got it. As I used to say years ago, I recall this when I was in law enforcement, and I remember this one guy, sergeant that we had, and he would, if he'd ask, "Well, why are you patrolling in this area?" And my famous thing I used to say, "Well, or why are you here?" Anytime somebody would ask me, well, why I was wherever I was, I'd say, "Everybody's got to be somewhere, right?" Which wasn't really an answer, right? But it was fun. Everybody's got to be somewhere. So the guy says, "Why am I in a truck?" Because everybody's got to be somewhere. Hey, it's just as good as to be in a truck as anywhere else. Actually, because I am a week in a so-called, is it really a vacation if I'm doing videos every day? I mean, I'm still going to do Scott Ritter tomorrow morning. I'm still going to do at 2 o'clock. I'm going to do Larry C. Johnson. So realistically, am I really on vacation if I'm still doing my shows? I don't know, but I love my shows, so I got to do them. Thanks a lot, everybody. Let me see anything else. No. So I'll end by saying this. Thank you for your support, everyone. And thank you for watching and taking time out of your busy schedules. Follow me on Rockfin, follow me on Rumble, follow me on Telegram, follow me wherever you can follow me, Facebook. If you can't follow me on X because I'm not there. But if you can afford to, I certainly appreciate it. Buy me a coffee is great. You just go there, buy Garland a coffee. How much? 5 beans. You can decide to make it monthly, as many as you want. How many? 1, 2, 3. It's like $5 each. We got PayPal, we got Patreon, we got actually, if you look, I even got a PO box there now. If somebody wants to send mail, send a donation, anything you want to send, feel free. PO Box 32. You see, I got that there. So thank you very much, everybody. Most importantly, whether you can afford to donate or not, what is important is, as a part of the alternative media movement, you're the most important part. And why do I say that? Because you're the one that's going to share this on all your social media platforms. You're the one that when you watch Judge Knapp, or when you watch Danny Haifong, or when you watch Jimmy Dore, or whatever the hell you watch, you're the ones that are going to share those on your social media platforms and spread the word. Thanks a lot. Peace. I'm out.